Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I believe most people have trickled in. Still have a few coming in here and there, but let's go ahead and get started. Just so you guys know, I will be paying attention to the chat as well. So if you have any questions, go ahead and throw those into the chat window, and I will address them as they come up. So thank you for joining me. My name is Colton Haney. I am a senior MEP technical specialist with ATG USA. And today I want to show you guys the fire rating tool from CTC software. So in today's presentation, some of the things that I want to go over with you guys is I want to discuss why you would even want to use this tool when there are other workflows out there. I want to show you guys what the tool actually is, what it can do, talk about that a little bit, walk you guys through the user interface, show you how that works, and then we'll go ahead and actually use the tool and show you guys a workflow of how it actually works and getting it used in the model. So for starters, why would you want to use this tool when there are other workflows available to you? Well, there's lots of options for generating the graphics in Revit, for creating your fire rating visuals for such as your life safety plans, if you're an architect, or maybe you're MEP engineer and you just want to know where the fire rated walls are. I know that would have been useful for me. My background is in HVAC design. It would have been nice to just be able to look at the plan and say, oh, that's a fire rated wall. I need a damper there. And I'm sure there's other uses for having these graphics on your plan. But there's a lot of trade-offs for most of the options. And most of those options are very manual. It's a very manual process and it's very tedious. Now there is one option that it's more automatic. It requires a little bit of setup, but then once you have the setup, it will continue to work for you without a whole lot of input, but it still comes with trade-offs. Let's talk about that tool, that fire rating tool that CTC provides. It's part of the Revit Express tools. It's part of the BIM project suite, which if you guys aren't aware, you can actually download a free two-week free trial that will give you full access to all of the tools in the suite. And then at the end of that 2-week trial, you'll still have access to those free tools. So there's still a collection of tools in that suite that you'll have forever and you can continue to use. The fire rating tool specifically allows you to assign values to the fire rating parameter on walls. And then you can actually map line types to each fire rating so that Revit knows this line type is associated with this fire rating value, which that further allows you to more easily generate graphics and generate consistent graphics between multiple floor plans and allows you to do it fairly quickly. So I'm actually going to close this presentation and open up Revit. I just have a basic elementary school model here. It's 2 stories. You can see here I am in a life safety plan. And actually, before we jump into the tool, let's look at that other option that's somewhat automatic. It's the most popular one. I see a lot of people use it for generating fire graphics, and that's actually to use a filter. So if I zoom in, I know I have some walls in here. And again, guys, my background's in HVAC. So if you're an architect and you're seeing my quote unquote design for these walls, please don't laugh at me. I don't know what walls are supposed to be rated. But I have some in here in the model just for demonstration purposes. So I know here, if I check my properties, I've got a 2-hour rated wall. And if you're not familiar with fire rated parameters in your walls, if you go into your edit type, there is a fire rating parameter built into walls in Revit where you can designate what the rating is. and that's right here. So you can see here I've got a 2-hour rated wall in the electrical room, and then it looks like I've got some 1-hour rated walls here. But aside from actually selecting the wall and the fact that I have it in the name, I've seen some models not have it in the name for the wall, and you actually have to go in the properties to see if it's even rated. But aside from that, I can't tell what walls are rated, what walls are not. So one common workflow that I've seen is people will go into their visibility graphics and they will apply a filter. So to do that, we'll hit Add under our Filters tab. I don't have one already made for fire rated walls, so we'll go ahead and edit and add a new one. I will call this wall 1 hour. And we'll just make one real quick, check none. Find my wall category, make sure that's selected, and in my rules, I want to find fire rating, set that equal to, and then I know the naming convention in my parameters. So I make that specifically to there. You can set it to contains. That way it'll catch different uppercase and lowercase. You can do, or variations of it. You have some options here. But once I've made that filter selection rule, I'll hit OK. And then I'll make one for my 2-hour wall as well. Again, find that wall category, fire rating equals, and then I will put 2. And you will notice it is at least somewhat smart. It is catching that I already have some parameters in there, and it grabs that for me. I'll hit OK. So now I've got 2 filters I can add to for my view. So I'll add those. And then from here, I can control how lines are drawn, how the surface pattern is, how transparent it is, so on and so forth, just like you would for any other filter. What I most commonly see people do is they'll just set a color. We'll do blue for our 1 hour. And you can put any kind of pattern you want here. Usually there is a pattern that people use. I'll just use solid fill so it's easy to identify real quick. We'll make the 2-hour rated red. Solid fill. So if I hit apply and then I hit OK, you can see in my floor plan now, those walls are showing up colored. This is a fantastic option. I've seen a lot of people use it, but it does come with its own drawbacks. One of the benefits is that, once you have it set up, it's pretty easy to just apply it to a view template. That way later, all you have to do is apply the view template. You don't have to go set up these filters again. But you'll notice that it only applies that color to the walls. We're not seeing it over the doors or the windows, even though the wall above them and the wall below them that they're set into is fire rated. We just don't visually see that on the floor plan. We also don't see any kind of designation. You would still need your legend, or you'd have to manually apply your tags to those walls to designate the fire rating if that's something that you want to show in your documents. Still a fantastic option, but again, it does have its drawbacks, just like most of the other options that are available. So if I'll just undo those filters real quick, we can actually jump into the fire rating tool. When you have these tools installed and your suites installed, you will have this CTC software tab in your Revit software, in your ribbon. And you'll notice I have a few suites installed, but over here I have the CTC BIM project suite. Depending on how you have your settings or what the default settings are when you install them, it may look slightly different from what I've got here. I have my free tools under their own dropdown, but I have seen where all the tools are listed out as smaller blocks as well. But you can see here the light green tools are all your free tools. And just like I mentioned earlier, if you do get the trial, you'll be able to continue to use these light green tools, as well as your other suites. The light colored tools are the free ones. And same thing applies for them. 2-week free trial for all the tools. And then after that, you get to keep the free tools. So this dark green tool over here is fire rating. I'll open that. And one thing you'll notice here is it automatically pulls in all of the wall types that I have modeled in the project. If you have some loaded, they don't show up here, but these are all walls that are in the project. You'll also notice that it tells me the type of the wall, as well as how many of them are in the model and whether or not they have a fire rating. You can see my 1 hour walls. Of the 1 hour, 2 hours, there's actually one here that does not seem to have a fire rating applied to it. One good thing you can do from this tool is you can actually come in here and you can add a fire rating to the wall straight from this tool without having to open the parameters in edit type and do it from there. So I can actually add 1 hour right here for that wall. I'll hit OK. And you'll see now that's been applied to that wall. If I go back in here, you can also have the option to create new wall types from within the fire rating tool. So if I wanted to, I could duplicate the wall type and make a 2 hour from here of the same wall type, and it will go ahead and automatically do that for me. So you can see here, it just kind of appended the name here at the end. You can you'll have to change that name from the wall in the edit type itself. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to try to pronounce your name because I know I will butcher it, but it was asked, does it pull out all placed walls or the ones not placed as well? It's only grabbing walls in your model that have been placed. So if you have, say, a project template setup that's got all your wall types in it, if that wall is not modeled, the fire rating tool is not seeing it. It's only going to grab ones that are actually placed in your model. So once you've identified your walls, you can actually, and you've got your fire ratings parameters set as necessary. The next option you will have is to go over here to mappings. And I guess I got a little ahead of myself. Let me take a step back, and talk about this bar up at the top. This is your pretty typical CTC software options bar up here at the top. You've got your tool, and most of these buttons are actually up here as well. You can refresh, say if you modeled something, excuse me, if you've modeled something, because you can actually work in your model while these tools are open, you don't have to close them every time. You can refresh it if it's not showing up in your tool. You have your options for how you want the error messages to display, what the name of your fire rating parameter is. So say if you've got wall types that are families that are set up differently, and there's a different parameter for your fire rating, come in here and actually set that up if you're using something not typical of out of the box. You can set your tag types, line cells, things like that, as well as load some defaults if you change things that are happening. Then you have your options for help. So if you need to contact support or access what is essentially the user's manual, you have that option. You click on the videos, it'll send you to a link where there's videos on the tool and workflows that you can use with it. You have the options to request features, maybe something that you want added to the tool that we've actually seen some features come in. One that I can think of that I'll show you guys in a moment, excuse me, is that in one point in time it was asked, can we make it so that it only applies to new walls, not pre-existing walls that are in the model. So if you're doing like a remodel or something of that nature, this feature was actually added later, so from somebody that requested it. You also have the options to report bugs, contact customer support about, that'll give you some of your kind of your licensing information and your version information for the tool. And then you have your licensing information for the suite. Another question that came up in the chat just a few moments ago is, can the tool pull walls coming from a linked model? And the answer is yes, it can. So for example, if you're in an MEP model and you've got your architectural model linked in, and you still want to be able to see those graphics in your MEP model, the tool can still draw the graphics for you. And the graphics will be detail lines in your MEP model, but it will be based on the walls that are in the architectural model that you have linked in. And in a moment, I will show you actually how to do that. The only difference you will find is under this fire ratings tab, you won't have the ability to change parameters for those walls or make any changes in here to the architectural model. But it will still get that information for you in your model that you have this linked into, that you have the architectural model linked into. So under the mappings tab, this is where you would map your line style and your tags that you're using in your project to the walls so that it knows what kind of graphics to generate for which kind of wall. You can see here in my project, I have walls that don't have fire ratings, walls with 2-hour ratings, and one with 1-hour rating. You have the option to set detail component families if you want details called out specifically for certain types of walls. You can go ahead and add that here, and it will add that graphic automatically with the other graphics. I can also come over here and set a line style. So I've actually already created line styles ahead of time for this purpose. So if I set my 2-hour to this 2-hour rated line style and my 1-hour to this 1-hour rated wall style, that's just going to essentially tell Revit where there is this type of rated wall, I want to use this line style. I can also add a wall tag specifically for these fire ratings. And so again, I have one made ahead of time, and I'll just go with the 1/4 inch because that's a good size. And so it will automatically place that wall tag for you on that wall, and it knows to put a certain one for one type of rating, a certain one for another one. So if you had separate wall tag types for different ratings, you can set those separately. For my model, I just have one that looks at the fire rating parameter and uses that, so I can set the same wall tag for both of them. You also have this option here to save out your mapping. So if you've got it set a certain way that you're going to use for certain standards, or maybe I know I've worked in the past with different architects, have different line styles that they like to use, or maybe you've got different clients that want it looking a different way. Maybe there's different standards in different states. You can actually save out these mappings and load them back in later. So if you've got all your stuff set out, save it, when you work with that client, or if you work in that state, so on and so forth. Later, when you work in that another model for them, you can just load that mapping. Or if you're working on another computer, or if there's so many options you could find use for that. Also, if you don't have the wall tag already inserted into the model, you have the option to load that from here. I know if you don't have a project template set up when you first start it, when you first start the model, there's nothing preloaded. Another good question, does it save the tag out as well? It's only going to save your mappings. It does not save the tag because that is actually a family. So you can build that family into your template. You can, save that tag family out with your mapping, but it's not going to save that tag itself, just the mapping of the tag. So once you've got all of your line styles, tags, component families mapped out how you want them to, you can come over here to the graphics tab, and this is where you're actually going to apply the graphics. Over here on the left side, you have a list of all of your views in the model. So you can look through all your ceiling plans in the model, you can see all your floor plans, your section plans, and you can actually select multiple plans at a time. So say this is my standard throughout the entire model. Maybe I'm in something like a hospital or a hotel that has lots of floors, and I want to apply all the graphics to all the floors all at once. I can actually select multiple floors, and it will apply those graphics to all the floors. For the sake of this demonstration, I'm just going to work with the first floor. And then over here on the right side, you can choose to either generate or, you can work with the wall tags if you want to. Not necessary. You can turn that on and off specifically. So it'll still do the line style, but maybe not do the tags if you don't want the tags. Say if you have a legend already set up, or maybe it's a smaller building, it's a little too crowded. You can set the spacing how you want to. By default, it's 10 feet. So every 10 feet, it will put a tag. And you can also set the minimum end spacing. So say you're over here at the edge of one wall where it meets another wall. You don't want it to lay on top of each other. Maybe you want just a minimum spacing over here. That's what you would set here. So at the end, there's going to be a minimum of 2 feet within that every 10-foot pattern where it'll put a tag for me. So it won't put tags way out here. You can also set the orientation. If you want all your tags to be horizontal specifically, all of them to be vertically, or if you just want to go by the wall orientation. Now there is one little caveat. So you've got like these angled walls here. Wall tags specifically can only be vertical and horizontal. So when you get to some of these curved walls and some of these angled walls, it may try to do things, it'll try to be smart, but it can only do so much. Most of the time I see it just do a horizontal tag here. Some cases, depending on the angle or the curve, it will try to put a vertical there. But one good thing that you have the option to do is once these graphics are laid on top of your plan, you can still go in and fine tune them if there are things that are wrong. It's not locked into it. It's not going to break anything. You can come in and just the same way that you would normally modify in your model, you can still do that. Down here in this box where it shows walls and linked projects, this is where you would see all the linked projects show up. And you can have it, this is where you would set it to work with those walls that are in your LinkedIn project. So for example, if you're an MEP designer and you have a LinkedIn architectural model, that LinkedIn architectural model or that LinkedIn structural model will show up in this box here, and you have check boxes, just like you have over here for your floor plans, to tell it what walls to look at and what walls on models to put in to put the graphics on top of. You also have this option over here. I talked about that feature that was requested and added in, phase created. So if you leave it blank, it will apply to all the walls in the model. So new walls, existing walls, demoed walls, it'll do all of it. And this is based on phases that are in the model. So I know some firms like to add a demo phase or multiple demo phases, multiple construction phases, so on. The phases will show up that are in the model. So this one only has existing and new construction. Those are the only options I have show up here. So I can set it to only apply these graphics to existing walls, or I can have it only apply the graphics to new construction. Or if I leave it blank, which I'll do here, is it will apply it to all of the walls in the project. So once you've got everything set the way that you want it to, over here in this top right here, you can tell it to generate graphics. So if I just minimize, or here, I'll just drag it off to the side so we don't lose it. You can see those graphics got applied to my safety plan. 1 hour with that 1 hour line type. Blue with tags every 10 feet, minimum of 2 feet off the connections. And you can see it's mostly oriented to the wall. So as I was saying with those angled walls, it's going to show vertical or horizontal because a tag can only be vertical or horizontal. Another question from the chat is, are those colors still coming from the view filter? No, they are not. So if I open up my visibility graphics, you can see my filters. I don't have any filters on this view. These lines are found, the tool, the way that it works is that the tool identifies the walls. And then what it does is it actually draws a detail line on top of that wall. So I can actually, move this. I'll unjoin. I can, it's all it is it's a detail line drawn on top of things. So, if I go to my regular floor plan, these lines aren't showing up. If I go to my 3D plan, which you won't be able to, I'll have to modify the box, but you won't be able to see them in here. So we'll do a section box. And I'll just cut it down to the first floor. You can see there's no model lines here. There's no coloring of the wall specifically for those graphics that I've generated. All it is it's simply a detail line. Now, one cool thing you've got here, maybe you're thinking, let me step back a little bit. Maybe you're thinking, well, what happens if, the architect changes the wall, or if I decide that I want to move something, am I going to have to redraw these lines every time, or am I going to have to start over every time, delete some, move stuff? And again, the answer is no. This tool does all that for you. So for example, if I move this wall down here, detach targets. So you'll notice those lines didn't move. They're not attached to the wall. However, with the tool, this has been thought of. So I have the option to update the graphics and it will add more lines, but you'll notice it didn't delete that one. So if maybe you've added new walls, that would be an option to use that. Or if you've made changes, so say you come in here in your mappings and you change to a different color, or maybe you've got a new line style you want to use the update graphics, it'll make those changes. But if I remove the graphics, let me take a step back for a moment. So if I come back into my fire rating tool after that wall's been moved, go to my graphics, remove them, and it looks like it is supposed to automatically change that and remove these tags as well. Maybe that is something that I have messed up in my model, but it will update those and I can generate new graphics. And now it will generate those graphics in that new location. So maybe some minor cleanup depending on your model. Again, minor cleanup for like your angled walls, your curved walls. But again, this is so much faster than a lot of the options. It solves some issues that some people have. If you're okay with those doors and those walls not showing there, I mean, go for it. This is all on you guys, how you want to do it, how you want to set it up. But this does solve some of those pain points that other options have. and it's just as fast as the view template setting, which, like I mentioned before, you have the option with the tool to save out those mappings if you have multiple clients that you want to work with, or if you've got multiple reasons to have different line styles, different tags, things like that. Whereas if you were to go with the view filter and the view template route, you would still have to make a single view template, project template per style that you want. So really that is all there is to that tool. It's very simple, very fast, very intuitive to use. There's an abundance of videos out there and information out there at the site. You have the option to, if you guys want to try it out, download that free trial, and no obligation. Try it out, see how it works for you. So just to conclude, wrap up, reiterate, the fire rating tool, it allows you to assign those values to the fire rating properties and map line types per fire rating quickly and easily without having to go into each individual wall type and do that yourself. You can do it straight from the tool. Allows you to easily and quickly generate those graphics across multiple plan views. You saw that I was working in one plan view. I can go ahead and apply all those graphics all at the same time to all the plan views that I want to apply it to. And then it solves a lot of the pain points that are experienced when using other workflows. Like I mentioned before, I haven't seen a workflow that doesn't have pain points, including this one. There's going to be a little bit there, but it seems to solve most of the pain points. So with that, I would like to say thank you guys and open up to any additional questions anyone may have. My information is also on the screen if you guys want to jot that down and send me any questions that you may have. Okay, if there are no more additional questions, again, if you guys maybe think of some later and would like to email them to me, I can either answer them or get somebody that can, or if you guys even want to look into maybe some pricing or something, we can get somebody to help you out there. Jose, I mentioned that this tool cannot show the so the initial workflow I was showing, I think there's a little confusion. Maybe my wording wasn't the best. The initial workflow using the view filters is what is not showing it over the doors and windows. That was where you go into your visibility graphics and you set filters for the colors. That will only apply it to walls. It's not going to show it to doors, windows, and etc. You'd have to maybe, if there's a fire rating parameter built into those categories, you could apply the filter to those, but you'd have to make additional filters for that. The fire rating tool does solve this. So you'll notice this window here, it does have the line type drawn over it and even has the tag on top of it, as well as for the door. So I'm sorry for that confusion. The filter workflow is the one that does not solve that issue. The fire rating tool does actually solve that. Are there any additional questions? Todd asked, might not be covered here. Are there fire stops details for penetrations at rated walls So for example, columns, beams, floor decks, or mechanicals that pass through rated walls. So if your objects are passing through rated walls, just like the door and the window, those lines will show up over those objects because that wall exists, three-dimensionally, vertically, or maybe in a different view outside the view range, etc. That line will show up just like it does over these doors and windows. As far as a detail for a penetration, there may be a way to, using the mapping set up in here, if you have a specific fire rating parameter, you can set the detail components here. It seems like there should be a workflow for that. Unfortunately, I don't have the information. I'm not aware of a workflow for that. Todd, if you want to send me an email, maybe reiterate your question a little bit there. I will get with our other experts and see if they know anything about that. And we'll be more than happy to send you what I find out. Jose also asked, do those fire rated lines update as the walls move? They don't update with the wall as you move them. So if I show you guys that again, if I move this wall out, let's actually pick a different wall. If I move this wall out, it wants to be difficult, always in a presentation, huh? So let's go to that one that I did before. If I move this wall here, you'll notice those lines don't change with the wall as I make that movement. However, if I go back into the tool and go to my graphics, I can remove the graphics that are showing up, and I can generate the graphics again. Or if I've made the changes, I can also choose to update the graphics, and it will redraw those for me. All it is it's an initial drawing of these lines and placing of these tags. In a sense, it's kind of dummy information. It's just overlaid on top of the plan view. But with the tool, you're able to extract the information and redraw those lines without having to individually update them as you may with other workflows. I hope that makes sense and answers your question. Are there any additional questions? Okay, if there aren't any additional questions at this time, again, you guys can take my email information down and forward me those questions. I'll be happy to answer them as I can. And if I am unable to, I'm more than happy to discuss with our other experts and our technical support. As well as I do believe this is recorded, so you guys should see a recording emailed to you maybe in a few days, as well as it will be added to our YouTube channel. So if you guys want some more information on some of our other tools or maybe some of the other software that we specialize in, we have 24/7 access to our YouTube channel, as well as you guys can follow us on LinkedIn and see things as we update, see the kind of the schedule that we've got coming up for other webinars, for tools, as well as other workflows, and get access to information such as our blogs, white papers, etc. So again, thank you guys for your time and have the good rest of your week.